briefing here, anybody have? Let's see, needs to allow. Yes. Or that is
Interesting.
So, okay.
Not
Like an A or something.
yes. Ready?
Hey, Jack, yes. Can I join it and have you promote me in?
Yes.
Just so we can get set up?
Yeah.
Great.
So then, I know. But when you're killing yourself,
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I have the bullets. Yeah. Jack, are you on now?
So I'm on like IT and I'm on.
So you're not on a hotspot?
So here, I can.
Give me 1 second. No. What's it called? Oh, yeah. So I figured out.
Lenny.
Recording in progress.
You should be able to see the microphone.
Good evening, colleagues. You like that, you know? This is a meeting of the committee of the whole of the city council. Welcome to the Allen House. Welcome to Mayor Fuller, Ms. Lemieux, Mr. Yo, other members of your team. It's great to have you join us tonight. I think as you all know from the agenda that was put out, we're going to go for 2 hours, like 7 to 9. And we're doing this as a substitute for the meetings that the mayor traditionally has had with smaller groups of councilors to go over the budget. We're trying to do this earlier in the budget season, which hopefully will help her and her team get our priorities and interests regarding the budget earlier, which will be helpful as they do their work formulating the budget. I think for those of us who are veterans, we know how much time the administration spends each year putting the budget together. It's really an extraordinary amount of work that they do when they come to us and present in the middle of April. And then we, of course, between the middle of April and hopefully the end of May, will review in committees the various aspects of the budget, culminating in a vote towards the end of May. So I'm going to turn it over to the mayor and her team this evening. They're going to have a presentation. I don't know how long it's going to be, so relatively short. And then we're going to open it up to questions. I know the docket item talk not only about the budget, but about more general priorities. I'm going to suggest, since we have a lot of folks here, that we really try to start by focusing any questions on budget issues. Obviously, priorities and budgets are interrelated, indeed, are deeply interrelated. But let's go from there. So Mayor Fuller, all yours, and thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this. I hope this is turns out to be a very helpful format for all of us.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing? It was good to be together. Some of us had a chance to have dinner together. That informal glue is particularly important these days, so it was nice to start that way. Maureen, Jonathan, and I are so glad to be together. This is early enough in our budgeting process that we will be taking notes, and please know that we're right here. So each of you can follow up with us individually afterwards with ideas, thoughts, questions, concerns, and suggestions. I want to start with some thank yous. Our IT team, to Joe Mulvey and John Weicker and Rachel Sherman, thank you for helping us figure out how to, those of us who are in person, to be able to work together, as well as welcome anybody in Zoom land. We're grateful to Jacqueline Norton and Sam Nyman. Together, they figured this out, how we could sit, how we could eat, how the technology will work. With the help of Joe's team, thank you to both of you. I'm really grateful to Adrian Herzl-Lutsen, who has welcomed us, and this is kind of a fitting and proper place for us to be thinking and brainstorming and envisioning the future of Newton. I'm going to turn it over to Adrian just for a sec, but I want everybody to understand this building was built at the end of the 1840s and in the early 1850s as the home for Nathaniel Allen. He was a big shot at the time, known as not only being a preeminent educator, but also a philanthropist and an abolitionist. He opened a school here in 1854 that, if you think we have culture wars today, imagine what he did in 1854, because he had equal education in this building for boys and girls together. He had the first kindergarten in the United States. And he thought you had to educate and think about the whole body, so it was, I'm sure, reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also phys ed was part of it. This was a stop on the Underground Railroad. And it stayed in the Allen family for like 100 years. Then, went through some rough times, and Adrian, yes, with a committed group, but almost single-handedly had the vision for turning this into a cultural center that would benefit Newton for decades and decades to come. There were lots of city councilors who helped along the way. But Councilor Vicki Danberg in particular was a leader in supporting Adrian and her board in making this happen. And we have also the taxpayers of Newton to be very grateful. $2.9 million of the construction costs came from the CPA, wound its way through the city council as well. Adrian's a remarkable force of nature. Thank you for all you've done for all of us.
So that feels slightly overstated, honestly. But anyway, thank you for your kind words. One other thing about this building and Allen's school I wanted to point out was that it was multi-racial as well. And he had a number of Black students. If you look carefully in the photographs, you see them. He was a very cutting edge guy, and his abolitionist activities got him into trouble and arrested and all of this, but you know, he was a remarkable person. Had only we stuck with some of that philosophy back then, we wouldn't be where we are today. So the idea behind the cultural center was to have a place. Space is the #1 need for arts and cultural organizations, especially those that do not own real estate. So our idea was to have a collaborative space where smaller groups could have office, rehearsal, performance space. So where you're sitting now, often there, some of you know because you've been here, but where the screen is, often the performers are there and the audience is here, and we have up to 125 people in here. And actually, there's a big Celtic concert here. I know Pam's coming. I don't know if anybody else signed up for it, but Julia too, okay. And Andrea, that's right. So all of our local board councilors are gonna be here on Saturday night, which the place should really rock, but it's very well insulated, so there shouldn't be complaints for any. So it's interesting being right embedded in a residential neighborhood. We experience all the things that everybody experiences in their neighborhoods, and we try to be good neighbors and do the best we can for that. So we're trying to do cutting edge activities, much as Alan did back in his time, to make contemporary music, you know, popular cultural things lively and happening here. And parties, a number of you have been to League of Women Voters stuff here, all that kind of thing. So we're trying to be as community inclusive as we possibly can. So we're incredibly grateful because without the funding that we got from the CPC, this wouldn't have happened. It took us 9 years, in part thanks to COVID, and $8 million to do this project. So it's been a significant investment for the community, and we're grateful for your support. We would also just encourage those of you that are getting looped into a little bit of this discussion about the cultural logistics proposal that's beginning to float around the city, that we might be really interested to further develop arts and culture in the city and in the region, because we have a lot of it here, but we're not as well coordinated. So thank you very much. Those of you wondering, there is pressure ventilation. We have a geothermal HVAC system with 15 500-foot wells out here in this parking lot, or parking area where our parking wells are. And also have a fresh air ventilation system, which was in the specs before COVID, but certainly has been great for a historic building because most old buildings don't have fresh air these days. So if it's blowing now, you should be safe from germs. So thank you all for coming and enjoying the meeting. It's great to have you here. And if you want to, somebody mentioned physical education. We had a bowling alley So right up here over at, Andrea said that whole wall is along the side of the bowling alley, and if you want to go take a look at the historic bowling alley, we've done tonight, be our guest, thank you.
Thank you for hosting us, Adrian. We're gonna go fast through a small number of slides. I'm gonna suggest you hold your questions to the end, but write them down. We're gonna make it fast because the primary purpose tonight is to listen, but let me give you a sense of where we are with the 2025, fiscal year 2025 budget. And we'll go on from there. Just want to start by talking about that next slide, Jonathan. Thank you for the help. So you move it forward. I'll figure it out. Here's what I, with the help of Maureen and Jonathan, have tried to do. This is now our 7th budget that we've put together. The inclusive and collaborative is inside and out. We work really hard with all the different departments to lift up the ideas that our department heads have and have them work across department silos. Ditto with trying to really understand what residents, businesses, school committee members, city councilors are passionate about. We will be giving you again, what, a 3-inch thick book. Hopefully any kind of number you want is buried in there somewhere. Ping Maureen if you can't find the number you're looking for, she'll know which page or which footnote it's in. We have particularly learned in these last 6 years, we need to be quickly to be able to pivot really quickly and respond to exogenous events. We tend to look out 20 years. So we've got long time frames, and then we're also looking at the immediate first year. So we're trying to be strategic and make sure we're paying attention to long-term sustainability as well as immediate needs. There's a lot of numbers in there, and we look at them closely during the course of the year. We do a lot of year-to-date. How are we doing on track, both on budget numbers, but also on we've got lots of different goals, and we try to measure them. Sustainability, you've heard me talk about maybe ad nauseum, but it is critically important to me. And I would say we visit with you in writing in April and October, the long-term financial plan and the CIP. And then the recommended budget in April. But I would say every day is a budget day in the city of Newton. Next slide. Here's what we think about. There isn't $1 that's spent that we don't worry about. Maureen literally is going line by line by line. How many lines are there in the budget? 3,700. 3,700 lines. That's just over. That's, yeah, over and over and over again. Not once a year, but continuously. I want to just make sure everybody really understands Prop 2.5. If you have any questions, this is a good night to talk about it. Our tax levy can only go up 2.5% plus the new growth. Which, by the way, last year, we have like a half. Last year it was a $500 million budget. People won't understand how much new growth was last year. It was $5 million. So I just want to get the order of magnitude set for everybody. I have always cared deeply about the people who actually make everything happen in the city, which is our employees. Being fair to them and making sure they can do their job safely, matters the world to me. We're normal human beings, typical human beings, so we pay outsized attention to revenue growers and budget busters. We'll do that again tonight. This theory isn't just a theory to me, it's a principle of matching ongoing revenues with ongoing expenses and one-time revenues with one-time expenses is one of the reasons why, again, today, the city of Newton received a AAA bond rating from Moody's. For one of the 14 communities in Massachusetts that have a AAA bond rating. By the way, there is Standard & Poor's, and there are some that use Standard & Poor's. Moody's is a much harder credit rating agency. The gold standard is Moody's. And I want to publicly thank Maureen Lemieux in particular, with the help of Ron Mendez and Steve Furley. I was lucky enough that she said yes when I asked her to stay on from Senate Warren's administration. She gets most of the credit for the financial strength of the city of Newton now for 14 years. We're very lucky to have her. And it's all about prioritization because all of us would love to do everything now and we just simply can't. Next slide. I'm not going to read each of these. My philosophy is that we have to do everything in the city of Newton. We can't just do one or two of these goals. You've got to have great schools. You've got to have a great senior center. You've got to pay attention to public safety. You've got to pay attention to open space and fields. We've got to be looking ahead at climate change. The literally health and human services, I think all of us need to really understand during the pandemic how important those aspects are. So I actually believe we've got to move forward on every single aspect of what a local city, a local municipal government does. And I'm not willing to pick and choose. We've got to do it all. Next slide. So looking ahead, when we look at the budget in about 5 weeks from now, it'll be coming in right around 526 million in revenues. Almost all our revenues, 85% of them, come from property taxes. Of our property tax base, about 90% is residential, 10% is commercial, but we do this tax shift thing. And so that commercial or non-residential picks up about 15%. of the property taxes, and our residents pay the other 85%. We're just about to look at that yellow sliver, the remaining 17%. Because of actually don't, not quite yet, Jonathan, sorry. You know, I don't know backwards, it may be too hard to go back.
Yeah.
We'll forge ahead. I just want to say, the vast majority of our revenues are very stable. Because of property taxes and because of Prop 2.5, they grow at 2.5%. And they're predictable, by the way. That is a blessing almost all the time. This set, the last set, 17% of our revenue, I just pulled it out here so you can see it. On the right-hand side, at least to my right, chapter 70 and unrestricted general government aid, affectionately known as OTHA. Chapter 70, the cherry sheet came out in the middle of our teacher strike. Chapter 70 only goes up, we're a minimum aid community by 1.8%. So thank you to the state for the $28 million, but it's not growing nearly enough to keep up with the growth in our expenditures. And unfortunately, it's not only just low growth, it's predictably low growth. It's not going to change. Any of you who happen to be running for a job up at the State House, keep that number in mind. The other low growth, no growth is auto excise taxes. It's just plain old flat. Parking meters and violations, plain old flat. The variable growth, and we pay a lot of attention to, are building permits and interest income. We'll talk more about that. And the building permits, yes, it's income, but always look at that as your predictor of what's going to happen with the new growth. That's the really exciting and interesting part of building permits. Next slide. ARPA, boy, that was an unusual period for the city of Newton, and a peculiar part of the mayor, because it had so much discretion on it. Happy, I think, in fact, some councilors have introduced an ARPA docket item, and so we'll be at finance. I don't think it's this Monday, maybe 2 weeks from Monday. 98% of the funds are essentially fully committed. There's just a small amount of dollars left to figure out what to do with. We have to have them fully under contract by the end of this December and fully expended by December 2026. I am really proud of ourselves. We were careful with ARPA not to use it for ongoing expenses because it's ending. And in fact, what Maureen and Jonathan and I have done is we weaned ourselves off of ARPA even for the FY25 budget. We're not using any ARPA funds to support the operating budget, which we did last 3 years. So we're off it, which is good and important. Let me go to interest income. We're gonna have another bumper crop of interest income this year. And so therefore we're gonna have high free cash again in certified this fall of 2024. But it is, well, and all of us are watching the Fed and trying to figure out what's gonna happen to interest rates. Can any of you figure it out and can guarantee it, let me know. We are definitely considering it as one-time funds and we use it for one-time expenditures. And all that, by the way, drops into free cash and goes right through the city council, so you will still be helping us decide how to spend it and including any of our recommendations. Next slide. No surprise, total expenses will match total revenues. We do have to balance budget. The only weird thing, there's an asterisk, total expenses, that's our general operating fund. Please remember, there's another 60 million roughly that comes in through our water, sewer, and stormwater fees. So our actual expenditures are getting close to 600 million between taxes and fees, yeah. It's a big operation here. The blue down there says Newton Public Schools is 54%. That's just the budget allocation. In fact, over on the municipal expenditures, you've got the school nurses on our side, the school crossing guards on our side, you've got the school debt on our side. By the way, the vast majority of that is for school buildings. Where pensions and retiree healthcare are, it's weird. And we'll go through it with the budget. Some is within the public schools, some that like the state has, some is over in that yellow pie. But all together, when you add everything up, we'll have the exact dollar for you, but it's probably 63% of all our dollars go to educating our young people. Want to do one other thing. Newton Public Schools, of their budget of 282 million, about 89% of their expenditures are for personnel. On the city side of Marina, should double check my math, and she does need to check my math. If you look at the combination of municipal plus debt plus pensions and retiree health insurance, I believe, if I've done it right, that about 69% of our non-NPS are also personnel. So we're lower than them, but that makes sense because of the debt service that is over on our side. And I may be wrong.
The only thing I want to say is the 69% is of the green slice of the pie.
Well, I wasn't sure if it included the yellow, but you'll help the that. Okay, so then we're gonna be higher than 69%. Oh, no, that's all retiree. No, it will be, it will be. You're right. Thank you. I just want to do one other thing to put things in perspective. Newton Public Schools, 282 million. Got it? The three largest municipal departments are each about 10% of that size. Police is 24 million. Fire is 25 million, DPW 26 million. So just order of magnitude when you think about where we spend our dollars. Next slide. Okay, so here's the pressure points that we're acutely aware of at this time. And these are not in any particular order. NPS always will be, because it's the hugest part of our expenditure. We're in a very stable place. We've settled a contract that we can afford. I would say, though, that I think it is a permanent feature that the needs of our kids are increasing and will stay high. even as enrollment dips. And I would also say we've got an excellent superintendent who's taking a fresh look at both how we've done things in the past and what we need to do better going forward. She's got big ideas, and guess what? Big ideas come with big dollars. Capital investments. I'm lucky I'm double-headed. I sit on the school committee. There are 3 school buildings that are desperate for investments right now, Ward, Underwood, and Pierce. And the other elementary schools that we haven't done yet, it's really hard for those parents and those students to go over and visit Service or Cabot, or Anger, and then walk into Memorial Spa. Sorry, you name whichever school hasn't been done yet. We have to do work on the police headquarters building. It's way overdue. And we are still under investing in final improvements. And when you don't do maintenance well, it just, your costs become higher later. Roads, it's all about money. We know how to fix roads, and we just, we've been catching up. I am grateful to Seti Warren before me, and we just have to do more. And doing more also means doing better, because we're thinking a heck of a lot more about, so what are we doing for bicycle lanes and pedestrian crossings and what stormwater and trees and the whole bit. So if you're doing complete streets, trash and recycling to the city council, we've got to use the next 12 months to really come to some conclusions about what we're doing with trash and recycling. That all our contracts are coming up. We've got to do it differently. It will be a budget buster if we keep just the same service in the same format. So we look forward to working with you. We've been working hard to make sure that the budget covers, operating budget covers all expenses. We're not there yet. We still use $1.5 million of free cash just to support the operating budget. The full cost of roads, are using free cash for. OPEB, we're not fully funding yet. We've got to wait for it. I think we're underfunding maintenance still in the operating budget. So we've got work to do. Everything costs more, you know what I'm saying? So doing, every, let's say, quarter-mile of road work just costs a heck of a lot more today than it did 5 years ago. So if you've got to keep up with the work, it costs more. Some of you probably were with Jim McGonigal and Sean Sullivan last night. Stormwater is going to need significantly more funds, and that would be a fee, but to our residents, it's a fee, it's a tax, doesn't matter, it's coming out of their same wallet and their same bank account, both for flooding and phosphorus. That's going to be a really big deal. We obviously pay a lot of attention to union contracts. We just have to make sure that the contracts work within our budget. We got a plan. We're working the plan on retiree liabilities. We have a 15-year plan for pensions. It's followed by a 15-year plans for OPEB. The pension plan is going to work if we have the will to keep going. It's still $800 million of unfunded retiree liabilities. It's giant still, even as hard as we've been working, and we just have to keep at it. I did put a question mark on the pressure points. We never quite know what's around the corner. You can have something like a pandemic. You could have a major ice storm. You could have, you name what terrible you want, and what horrible terrible thing you want to mention. And so we have to be very careful about maintaining our reserves to be able to address that. Last point, and then I really am on to you. This city, we're lucky to live in Newton. Thanks to our unique position next to Boston, to amazing residents here. We're an appealing city. We're a stable, strong, and sustainable city. With the asterisk is we're not growing very much. So that there aren't many opportunities to add funding, start new initiatives, add full-time equivalents for those activities. So we're watching every dollar, but with that, we're here to listen. Know that there isn't much flexibility, so I suspect I'm gonna be nodding my head and saying, that's a good idea, that's a good idea. But our ability to actually deliver with funding to back up the good ideas is severely limited. With that, why don't you run
Sure,
this section,
sure.
Mr. President,
So-
and,
Thank you very much, Mayor Fuller and your team for really a very thorough, detailed presentation. Let's open it up to questions. So we'll start with Councilor Davis.
So, thank you. That presentation was great outline. What keeps me up at night is the phosphorus and recycling.
Yeah.
And the increased costs that we're gonna see over the next few years. How are you? What is that, what are the, what kind of increased costs are we looking at just in 25? And where is that funding coming from? And then how does it look for 26, 27, I mean, 26, 27, 28? And where does the funding come from? Those are tremendous costs.
so I can tell you what we're beginning, we're beyond beginning to think about. Here's where think we're headed, but I seriously welcome ideas and thoughts. You are right to worry about both. I would just broaden it slightly, it's trash and recycling, and phosphorus and flooding. What I think what will be coming to you with, in the next 5 weeks. I suspect what you will see is that we will increase the stormwater fee disproportionately. We happen to have for this year really strong reserves in water and sewer. Some of you know that for many years, we've been able to keep the total increase between water, sewer, and stormwater at 3.9%, which is higher. It puts a lot of strain on our residents, by the way. 3.9% year after year after year is a big deal. I think we'll be able to do that this year, because we do have great reserves in water and sewer. But we're trying to lay out the next 5 years. The increase on the stormwater side, if it goes up $1 million next year, off of a tiny base, it's like $4.5 million in direction. So it's a big, I think that's a 22% increase, but it's off of a tiny base. The year after will probably need to go up $2.5 million over that, and the next year after $3 million over that. So it's gonna grow exponentially. And we do have important work to continue to do in water and sewer. So I doubt that it will be sustainable to keep the increases to only 3.9% over the next decade. I think we'll get away with it next year, but I doubt we will the year after.
But next year we have reserves, you're saying, so we could be fine with 3.9, but we have to plan for the years out.
Yeah, exactly, and, so that, and on the trash and recycling, that's where, you're not gonna like being a city council. Because these will be hard decisions on trash and recycling. I'm not sure where we'll land, but the costs are going to go up significantly in the next 3 years as different contracts come through. It's not unique to Newton, this is a statewide issue. And, I am guessing that one of the things we'll bring forward for us to discuss is to keep the costs that we're currently expending probably in our tax base, but the delta perhaps goes into a fee base, which will encourage residents to be really even more careful about what they bring into their house that ends up going out of their house as trash or recycling, and to be super, super, super careful. That will be really hard for us as elected officials, to be really hard for our residents, because we're literally affecting how people live their lives, and that's no fun to have you doing that. So,
Is that part this year in terms of education, or is it actually more than just education?
so I think that we, all of us in this room, will be doing lots of education, but also having to make a policy and financial decision about how to pay for the increased costs and how to, our residents and businesses will be paying for it. And is it through taxes or fees or combination, and how we do this, and really explaining it to people. So we've got our work cut out, and you're right to be worried about those, so I. Absolutely.
Go ahead. Just a question about the black earth, the composting, if we really push, can that make a serious dent in the overall cost?
So the question was, if we composted more, would it help costs? Definitely, because about 25% of our trash weight, I don't know if it's physical volume, but weight is food scraps, and what we compost is really heavy stuff. Actually, please know there is a free way to drop off compost. You used to be able to only do it at Rumford. Now there are 3 more locations in Newton where you can drop it off for free.
You just need to sign up ahead of time and get.
Yeah, it's easy to register to do it.
There is black earth.
And Black Earth Compost, Joe and I have been using it. It's really easy, and it's fairly affordable. It's about $60 for 6 months. We find it easy to do. I hope for, and oddly enough, if we switch over to having trash and recycling partly fee-based, I think more people might start composting more, because that will drive down the costs. So I think we're part of this world where we really got to change how we buy and how we throw out, and how we deal with composting through the question.
Councilor Danberg, and then.
Following along on that, is there serious talk about going to a fee-based trash system soon, or is this still down the road, please?
So we will have to decide if this is a serious talk about it. Again, my hunch is that we as a city council and mayor all working together probably will not go 100% to pay as you throw. That's my guess. Let's talk about, let's figure it out together. My guess is we do a partial, some of that, but yeah, that's this year that we should be figuring it out. Um, um, and have a vision for it. We don't have to implement it this year, but it's a big agenda item.
And what is this year's annual trash cost? What is the contract cost?
We'll go through all the individual components of it with you at budget season and with your permission, rather than go down the rabbit hole. It's an important and good question, but
Yeah, I agree. Let's all try to stay at a fairly high level for this evening because, but that's gonna be clearly a discussion that we have in depth.
and over and over again.
All set, Councilor Danberg, do you have any?
Yes, that's it.
Great, thank you. Councilor Gunn?
I'm gonna move this to our second favorite infrastructure question, and that's roads. The last couple of years, it's been $9.5 million a year, and I know it's been hard to scrape together all money for that. What's inflation done to that number? And, really, how much of that is actually a cut? And is traffic calming part of that number or on top of that number this year? And what's it all about?
So I'll gently correct you, Counselor. Thankfully, because of a combination of ARPA and free cash, we've been able to invest a lot more than 9.5 million over the last few years. We've been able to surge some of our work. And I suspect our residents don't see it or feel it, because there's still so much left to do. So we've been able to go over that, but in the operating budget, we don't even have the full 9.5 million baked into the operating budget. And I did see the numbers as to what inflation has done to road construction dollars. I can get it back to you, but it's something like roughly in the last 5 years, it's, I think costs have escalated about 30%, I think over the 5 years, but somebody remind me, I know exactly where those dollars are. The MMA did a great write-up on this, and I'll get it to you. So that,
And
more money for roads, and yes, traffic
traffic
calming
calming, has that,
is part of that
Part of that.
9.5 million.
Yeah, and sidewalks as well.
As part of it, the RRPs are part of that 9.5 million. And it needs more dollars to be able to do more.
All set, Councilor Gunn, do you have any more?
I do, I have a request that we might get the CIP in a searchable format, so we can find things. I'm having a hard time with the hard copy.
Yes, I think what we did last year, is make it available, in an Excel, spreadsheet, so we can do that again, so I think we did that last year.
I think we've already
Yeah,
done it.
and we'll do it
Counselor
again.
Oliver helped
Counselor
us do
Oliver
that.
was,
So that's
Yeah,
check mark, that's
yeah,
already
I
done.
can do that, yep.
Good. And, I understand that NPD has its website up and it's on the city website and it's up to date. I'm looking for more transparency in the form of data and reports that can go to, crash reports that can go to DPW and be shared. So that when we're looking at, high crash intersections, we can see whether they're caused by infrastructure or not caused by infrastructure. So when we're doing our planning, we're planning for what needs to happen at those intersections to avoid the high crash, the kinds of crashes that happen. Does this need an allocation? Does this need some money toward it?
Got me. I have no idea, but I'll take it back to our team and figure out if this is a financial question or just,
Because I'd like our investments when we're into an intersection anyway, and we have crashes to be driven by.
If I can also just gently say, whenever we're doing
Yeah,
that work, we are always getting the crash data, so we feel like we're pretty well informed as we're making those decisions, but making it easier for people like you and the general public to see it easily, but we feel fully informed as we're doing that.
That talks about, Councilor Grossman, and then Lucas.
Thank you. So I have a short list that dovetails on a lot of other topics we've already talked about. Mary, you touched on some of our school buildings that are most desperately in need. Many of you here will know, some of the new people may not. I served on a very short-lived Ward Underwood working group, which imploded with a specific short-term pause for the city to take stock of where our school building plan was as a whole and come back to the public with what we were going to do about this reality that a certain subset, especially on the elementary school level, but it's not just on the elementary school level, of our kids go to really gorgeous building, and teachers, by the way, and all the people who work there. Really gorgeous buildings, and a larger subset of the city do not. So I think the first thing I would just put in there is really a question, which you don't have to answer at this moment, but obviously there have been other priorities in the school system in the interim. I think we need a timeline and an expectation on what the plan is and how we're going to tackle this. So that's point one.
Can we stop at point one and then have keep going? Is that okay? It's such an important question and it affects so many teachers, parents, kids, families that I think, let's talk for a second. I started the day at Pierce Elementary School PTO meeting with Superintendent Nolan, Chair Chris Fresky, school committee member Steve Olszewski, and no surprise because Pierce, I would rank Ward and Underwood as the most serious, but in terms of condition, but Pierce is awfully close, I would say, to Ward and Underwood. There were lots of questions there about this. So this is going to be a tough one for us and more for the school committee, I would say, but it will ultimately be on the city council. We've got lots of information now on what we can expect in the next 5-10 years on enrollment. We've got quite good information on the remaining elementary school condition. We don't have full information on all middle and high schools, and there, as you said, Counselor, there's some serious condition issues also beyond elementary schools. Here's gonna be the rub. And difficult decision for this community. We have 15 elementary schools. When you're building a brand new building, you kind of wanna build a building for, don't hold me to this exact number, let's say 400-ish students. That's the efficient way to build a school building. Plus the educators love it because when we can have, let's say 3 classrooms per grade, it lets kiddos be, you know, with Mark this year, but be away from Mark and be away from Dan next year and be over with Maureen and Jonathan here. You know, you mix up kids. It allows you to have full support systems, both for those who want extra challenge and those who need extra support. You can support the English language learners. You can do all sorts of great things once you've got a school building of like 400 kids or so. The problem is we've got a bunch of elementary schools that are definitely less than 400 kids. And we also treasure neighborhood schools. we love being able to have many of our kids walk to school, know their close neighbors, have that intimate knowledge of each other as parents and, and some of the schools that are in the poorest condition happen to be smaller schools. So working this out, retention, and by the way, our debt service is fully allocated. There is no more extra debt service to go out to bonding, so we'll also need debt exclusion overrides for the next schools. And we'll try to sneak our way into the MSBA program. If I were giving advice to people at the State House, increase the funding for the MSBA, just saying, hope other people are listening in this room. That's gonna be a really hard decision in the school today, and I don't know that they're gonna wrestle with it. Exactly, wrestle with, my guess is this school year. Given what we've all just been through, I don't think the school committee has the stomach to figure this out. So, we'll keep working to make sure that Josh Morse's team and David Stickley's team that we certainly are surging maintenance efforts, and thank you to the city council for this a good surge. We'll try to do it again, I hope, in the fall when we certainly have high interest income and high usual cash to be able to do more. Again, I hope with your help. But that's gonna be the hornet's nest in the school. And in a way, this city council, this two will be involved. It won't be easy.
I totally appreciate all that. I think, I don't know what the appropriate timeline is. Obviously, our superintendent is still new and went through a very difficult time. But I do think the community is chomping at the bit for a roadmap and at least an expectation of how we're gonna go about the conversation and when to expect it to happen. For a lot of these communities, the can has been kicked and kicked and kicked and kicked. And
Yes, you're so right. And also, again, it will take a debt exclusion override to pay for, let's say, whatever the next school is. And so we've got to figure out, so what is the next school building? Begin to get a little bit of feasibility study to begin designing and think about where the heck it's gonna go. So we're years away from opening the door on whatever the next one is. As we finish up Countryside, and I go and make it out in Boston. It's like, boy, it's kind of exciting and amazing. We're doing 4, and but you're so right. We need to do at least 3 more immediately. And how do we figure out the order and how to make it?
I'll try to make the rest of my points quick spot. Well, that one took a while. The next point is another education point, recognizing full well what a huge and important commitment you just made of our overlay funds and other funds to get us through the immediate crisis in the schools. One thing that stood out to me that really keeps me up at night is the fact that I know there's a certain amount of money set aside for superintendent Holmes initiatives. One of those subsets is extra help for the neediest elementary schools on COVID remediation. But that is a subset, and the needs are district-wide. And the time is ticking, and these kids are getting older, and their deficits are very real. And I'm not suggesting that there's a magic pool of money that we can put towards this to solve the problem, but I'm just highlighting that while I'm so grateful we've gotten through this tough moment, I don't think we can take this big sigh of relief and say, oh, great, now we're good. There's just so much more there. I will switch gears.
Let's talk about that one too for a second, with your permission.
Sure, go ahead.
You're right again. There's no doubt about it. There is no additional funding until our community wants to pass an operating override. I think Superintendent Nolan is looking closely how she uses her resources. Where do we put all the personnel we have? Do we rearrange and emphasize different things? She's got to work within the budget for the foreseeable future.
A reality I completely understand, but a problem nonetheless, that is financial in nature, of course, and bears mentioning. I will try to just mention these other things. To piggyback on Councilor Downs' points around streets and crash data, I'm increasingly concerned about the effect of our negotiations around our union contracts with our ability to make forward moving progress on topics like this. And I'll sort of highlight the police department as an example. The crash data that Councilor Downs is referring to originates with what's filed there. We're constantly looking to the police to do things like increase their traffic enforcement and enforcement of other ordinances and laws and measures we have in the city. And our police chief is beholden to what is able to come out of the works in our contracts, which take a really long time and are behind in many regards. And those things go hand in hand with our ability, in my view, to be able to implement the kinds of recommendations that came out of the police reform task force to move forward on public safety, like Councilor Downs is highlighting. So I wanted to put that out there as something that I'm looking to, because I think you're totally right that the police headquarters has been underinvested in, but there's a whole host of other things that we talked about, at least in my time as a counselor, as we looked at policing and with this fabulous police chief we have. And in my new seat as chair of the Public Safety and Transportation Committee, I didn't move you into it, and I've been thinking about that more and more. So I wanted to highlight that point. And of course, as Councilor Downs said, the traffic calming, the budget, and we all know how woefully underfunded that need is. Again, recognizing there's not some magic pot of money, but I hesitate to even make this laundry list, but I know I need to do it. And then the last thing I will say, which is somewhat of a minor point, but it goes hand in hand with the public safety piece, is that over the last few years, I've seen increasing difficulty in how residents who live on private ways manage the maintenance and public safety of those ways. And I understand that this is a deeply complicated problem, but I don't think there's a real understanding, certainly not citywide and probably not amongst this group, about how extensive the collection of private ways is and what challenges our residents face in being thrust into a position of having to negotiate with their neighbors to kind of figure it out on their own. But there's still roadways that kids are biking on and people are walking on, and we're wrestling with how to keep safe. And that's something that I've been thinking about, docketing something about to try to have more discussion and relate to what the challenges are. And understanding, again, it's not like the city has money to adopt all of these roadways tomorrow, nor do they need all the details they would have to conform, but maybe there are creative solutions around the edges to help move the ball forward.
Quickly respond to all three, if that's okay. Private ways, it's actually not complicated. It's really simple. If you buy a house on a private way, you are responsible for your road. And you do it with your neighbors, and that is knowingly. If you want to not be on a private way anymore, you and your neighbors have to pay to get the road up to excellent condition, and then we will take it over for you. It is what it is. I am so sorry for people if they unknowingly buy a house on a private way. Those are the people I feel really badly for, and I think it does happen sometimes.
I think it happens a lot. I think it happens most of
And,
the time.
but from a city perspective, there's no way that we can take over the private ways, and they're often in bad condition. Look forward to chat, to, if you document something, to saying more about it, but it's actually unfortunately really simple. Travis told me we need to do more, it's all money. Policing, I just want to just be really encouraging to each and every one of you as city councilors. Our police department needs you to say thank you to them and to support them along the way. We certainly will have criticisms and issues, and this is a really difficult time to be a police officer in the United States, in Massachusetts, and in Newton. Please consider going over, meeting with Chief Carmichael, saying hi to our officers, and whenever you bump into one of them, say, how's it going? Thank you for your service. What can I do to help you? We are understaffed right now because very few people want to be police officers anymore. So staffing really matters. Yep, we've got complicated police contracts and we are working on them. And that is true of every city and town in Massachusetts. Please don't blame the union, please don't blame the contract for the difficulties of policing. And it's like every other area in the city. If there was additional funding, we would do more. It is absolutely true. I have a lot of confidence in our police department and in our police officers and in our police leadership. And look forward to working with you on pressure points on things like doing more directed patrols. It's literally a question of having being fully staffed to be able to do more.
Just to close that out, and I'm done. I just want to be clear, in no way am I blaming. the
No,
union
I
or blaming the contract.
didn't mean to imply.
No, that's okay. Just what I am saying is that I think that, it's been highlighted in the last number of months what toll lengthy negotiations take, and none of us are at those tables. And I certainly understand that there are deeply complicated legal frameworks behind the different negotiations that drive things. I am looking more in a more detailed way at this process because it's become clear that it slows down our ability to make progress and make decisions and trade-offs in these contracts where small amounts of money can have big impact or small amounts of money are not feasible.
Big amounts of money.
Sure, so, but in any
I-
case, I just want to make clear, I'm not blaming anything. I just want to highlight that I think it's.
And I think that's,
I'll just say one last thing, President.
Briefly.
Please know, we have two unions in our police department, so let me know that. For officers is one union, the larger union, the others for superior officers, that's our sergeants, lieutenants, captains, et cetera. We're all up to date with our superiors. The Newton Police Association chose to go to mediation. So we're in that state process. We don't control that, but we're in that, so. And we'll work diligently with them in that process.
that for the moment, Councilor Grossman.
All done.
Councilor Lucas, and, you know, folks, we'll come back if we have time for people who've spoken already, and someone has follow-up. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you. Two things. I bought a new car about 18 months ago. and I'm paying a
Congratulations.
It's not easy, but, I am paying a lot more in excise tax now. Where you said it's flat? No.
So just so you know, if you buy a new car, anywhere in the state, this is, Newton doesn't choose that.
Yeah, I know.
tax. It is astonishing what your excise tax is. It drops fairly quickly. About 3 years from now, you'll be going, oh, thank goodness. You can see the rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think none of us seem to remember that when we buy a new car, that there's a hidden extra cost there.
10 times more than what I was paying 2 years ago.
What happens is you bought a new car, it's Louis' car is now 10 years old. So her rate went down. So the total amount that we collect stays very stable, even
Got it.
though it may be different.
Okay.
Thanks,
You're
guys.
welcome. The other thing is, to follow up on what Councilor Grossman said. So the other thing is to follow up on what Councilor Grossman, said regarding the police. I was watching UTV this morning and we had the groundbreaking for, the Cooper Center.
Yeah.
And in your speech, you were saying that you started that process 6 years ago. It was a campaign promise and it was a long 6 years. I know, I was part of it. And, the police station is not in great shape. You said morale is low, amongst the.
I didn't say.
Oh, you didn't, you say that? I'm sorry, I apologize. And they do need a new police station. I think we all, know this. I don't know if the new councils have had a chance to get a tour of the, police station, but it is in desperate need of renovations or a brand new one. And I would like to see that brought to the forefront, and I know we do need new schools. But the police station is also a necessity for the city of Newton in maintaining top, public safety.
I agree with you completely. That's why Josh Morse we already started. We're well on our way on the design. We have not identified a place for a different police station. So we're looking at extensive renovations and a new addition. And we're well on our way for designing it. And we've been working for months with all the different bureaus and the leadership at NPD on that. So stay tuned. We look forward to working with it. I agree.
Are any of those, meetings or minutes or reports on the, public buildings?
We haven't gotten to that point yet. It's internal with the police department so far, but we will get to that point. And I will tell you, the no surprise, that too will require a debt exclusion override in order to be able to pay for it.
Yeah,
Also, Council Lucas.
yeah.
We've been joined by Councilor Baker, who's with us remotely. Hello, Councilor Baker. Next I have Councilor Allen.
So just in response to the, Josh Morse gave us a terrific update at the not last night's meeting, but two weeks ago, on all of the projects that he's working on. And he explained the working groups. He said he'd never had such large working groups as he had now with the police station. So, he's really working hard at it. Mine was wanted to turn to the lighter side of life. Well, except for one item, but some of us met back in the day with Gloria Gavris, who told us all about the things that her organization does and now Merrill Kessler does. And we were shocked to find out that all of that is through fundraising. So I was just wondering if perhaps we could eke a little bit more money for the arts into our budget.
I know it's not, it's not the roads and it's not schools, but it is a quality of life issue. So I would put that high up on the list if we could put a little money out to the arts. Again, I agree with you. We doubled their staff from 1 to 2 a couple of years ago. And we have been increasing steadily, the grants for the Newton Cultural Council. Every year it's been going up. I've been excited about that. The new cultural council line will have going on again this year. I don't know if we'll be able to do more than that, but we'll keep it in mind as we look at the budget. Okay. Another small, I think, Jonathan.
If I could just quickly add, and I know you know this, but, in addition to what the mayor mentioned, we're also going to be bringing online at the Lincoln Elliott School, the new citywide auditorium, which is going to be a really premier location, the city will be managing, for arts and culture and everything. In addition, the Cooper Center is going to have some great space, as well, and we've also brought online that very small little pavilion, a butterfly pavilion in the Cabot Park, which can have very, small events as well. So, we're thinking about space, along with this building. City space is also, very important too. But,
Right.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
The other one is also a small thing on the lighter side of life that, the clerk's office used to have a half-time administrative assistant that disappeared, and COVID hit. And I understand that we used to have a newsletter, when David Olson was here, and we don't have it anymore, and our clerk said that she needs some help in getting it done and some other communication issues. So I'm putting in a plug for a half-time administrative assistant to come back to the clerk's office for communication issues with the council. Well, definitely keep it in mind, and I'm sure President Borrego and Carol Moore, advocates. Yes, there's, yeah. The other thing, which is not, there was a grant that we did, about a year ago, maybe a year and a half, to train low-income people for jobs. And I haven't heard how that's going, and I'm wondering, when the grant ends, do we need to put some more money into that? So thank you for lifting that up. It's called Newton Thrive. We have 50 low-income families who are deeply involved in getting, significant one-on-one help in trying to, improve their, economic, situation. The program's fully up and going with a great partner called NCAP, who's helping us with it. It will go through, I think it's mid-2026. It's using ARPA funding. Doing intensive work one-on-one is intensive work and extremely labor intensive. I would be very surprised if the city of Newton has the economic resources to keep it going after 2026. It's one of the great things that we're able to do with ARPA funding directly related to the impact of the COVID pandemic. So it's going beautifully, and it sounds like we should do an update for programs and services. And Jonathan's taking good notes. Look forward to doing that. I think there's things.
And just to respond, Councilor Albright, Vice President Harris, is talking about regularly. We are well aware of the needs of First Department, which I know you know, and we'll be lobbying forcefully with our mayor to help address those issues. As we all know, not only does our clerk and her team support us, but they also do elections and a myriad of other very public-facing roles. So it's an important problem.
I'll let folks know that We may have all of, not including any lobbying that we do, like one new FTE in the entire municipal side next year. We have to be really, really tight with FTEs, but we'll definitely listen, we'll come, but no promises tonight.
I didn't expect any problems for any today. All set, Councilor Overton? Next guy, Councilor Oliver.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna do my darndest to, I don't say I'm going to be here, I'm going to really try and be here. First off, I think the tone of this conversation is fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that
Together.
the more we acknowledge that people in this room and others around the city have some difficult decisions to make, and the more public we can be about what trade-offs are in front of us, the better off we're all gonna be. Some of the comments that I'm making have a lot to do with the feedback that this committee that I'm kind of shepherding, the community feedback. A lot of the comments we've heard are, be more transparent. Tell me what's going on, is one of the biggest things. And I don't think that is unique to any of our peers, but it is pretty loud when you look at the 320 some odd responses we got. But in that vein, I'd like to encourage more of this kind of. I really want to open the dialogue, and I mentioned some of this last year. I really do want to understand, Mr. Yo and I talked about this ever so briefly, last week. But when it comes to budgeting, let's understand as a group the requests that are coming from all of our departments and the trade-offs that we're able to make. The decisions that we're having to say no to, whether that's FTEs, or other. I think that's really important for not only everyone here to hear, but everyone who's listening at home tonight to hear as well. They need to understand what we're up against, whether it's trash and recycling, FTEs, it's gonna impact ISD, NPD, NPS, you name it. I think that's really important, and I really applaud the start of, that we're embarking on tonight. I think this is great. One area that I'm also gonna reinforce, and I don't know where to take this. Right, I think there are probably 100 different ways we could tackle this. I think the city needs to be very assertive, if not aggressive, in how we promote ourselves. We need to attract businesses, commercial to this city. I want to see ads around Newton, for example, around the city promoting Newton. This place is fantastic. You gotta open your restaurant here, otherwise you're being silly. Things of that nature. Probably not a discussion for tonight, but wow, if we can make the pie, right, that we were looking at earlier, a little bit bigger every year, that's gonna bode well for everything we gotta do. Might make some of the decision making a little easier, I don't know. And this last one, I've been kind of keeping a running list, if you will, of these tiny little grievances, I call them, or quality of life issues to kind of build off of something that Councilor Albright brought up that are, I think, fairly low budget impact, but they would have a significant impact to quality of life here in Newton. I have a long list. I'm not gonna go through the list. I'll just mention a couple of them. I think every city councilor in this room probably gets half a dozen of these phone calls on a regular basis. And it's everything from things we do as a city and things that we don't do as a city. And, Maureen, you and I spoke about one like by email really briefly. And I understand that there is a cost for this one, but I think it's pretty minimal. Like, why don't we allow nonprofits in our city, like the Boys and Girls Club, to split their water meters? They want to water that outdoor area between them and NECP.
And they just asked, hey, can we split our water meters? Currently, we don't allow that. I mean, yes, there's little cost because the additional cost needs to be borne across the city, but I think that's something pretty reasonable that we could make some hay out of. Or another example is, you know, our Parks and Rec Department is currently, this is so minor, and I know I'm a broken record, so I apologize. But I'm not sorry, really. Why do we charge residents more to use our fields than we do third-party, for-profit entities that are based in Newton? It's silly. It's small money. I get that. But why are we fixing it?
Just say that one more time, please.
I'll try to do my best. We charge residents more to use our fields through player fees and things like that than we charge for third-party, or for-profit entities like CERT to use our fields on an hourly basis.
We'll talk. I think
We
it's more
definitely- yeah.
complicated
And
than.
it is more complicated and I've got a consultant in my hip pocket that's done all the math. So
We're gonna take,
that's fine.
we're gonna take this one offline.
That's totally fine. Absolutely.
Go
I
ahead.
couldn't agree more. I think we should take it offline. I just think that there are some little things that we can do. And some little things we can take credit for.
Just so you know, that's not a little one, that's a big one, but let's
We'll take
talk.
that out. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think we can do some little things to improve quality of life around here. And I think we need to do it too.
The
Thank
big answer to that is, again, you're right, we have to keep continuously improving, there's plenty of things we can do better. And we look forward to working with every single city council as you think is.
You get one more,
One more.
Council.
As soon as there's one page, we need a redefinition of brevity.
Yeah.
All right.
There's
So the new comment, Councilor Bob, go ahead.
Here's as brief as I can make it. Let's fix the rat problem.
So, we will never fix the rat problem in Newton, just so you know, big surprise, but we will keep working at it. We will always have rats in Newton, just so you know.
I think the obvious question is, how many rats are we gonna have? But we'll leave it at that. Vice President Gale, do you want to speak again? Oh, I'll get their contact info. Go ahead.
Okay, so a couple quick things, I think. Between 26 and 27, the teacher's contract, I think that's when we had the revenue dip, or 27, 28. Is there anything we need to be doing now? Or are we just depending?
So we definitely need to look out for the next 10 years for the new public schools and map it out. And it will be very important to have an operating override to support the new public schools, and if it does not pass, it will have consequences.
And then the second thing is not on the police, not on infrastructure, but on culture. I know that Chief Carmichael came in with a lot of ideas on culture and changing that. Is there anything that we can do to invest in any of his projects, ideas, to improve the culture?
So we're investing heavily and paying attention to his priorities, and yep, there's still more things to do. We've got good leadership and we've got to keep working at it.
So, all right, so I've got Councilors Bixby next, and Block, Mickley, Baker, and Getz. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thanks. So I think similar to Councilor Oliver, some of my items are purely financial, but some are just kind of how we talk about the financial issues.
Just don't say you're gonna do this.
not gonna talk about rats, that's important. I think, you know, and it is, you know, we've heard a lot of feedback, from the public and, you know, I think people really want to understand the trade-offs. And so I think to the extent that we can explain these decisions where, you know, it often feels like there's found money or that, you know, these kind of funds come up, that we can explain to people that these are decisions, that there's costs and benefits to each of them, and maybe there's other items. I think every time that can be explained to folks and people can, you know, have that opportunity to understand and, you know, whenever possible weigh in, that's incredibly important. You know, I want to echo Councilor Grossman's concern about, you know, all pieces of NPS, the staffing, the programs and the buildings. And, you know, in terms of how we talk about our investments in NPS, I think what we are trying to do and aiming to do with NPS is incredible. We are trying to provide an inclusive, high-level, equitable, and excellent education to every kid in our city. And that is something that we should all be incredibly proud of and working together for. And I know when we talk about the money piece of it, it so often feels like it's a huge piece of our budget and it takes up so much money and there's so much investment and all of these things. But to be constantly thinking about what our goal is with this and what we are trying to do for each and every child in Newton and frame ourselves in that is what we should be doing. And then we are building those pieces of staffing, the programs and good buildings off of that. And so I just, you know, that's a call to all of us and, you know, every time we talk about the NPS piece of the budget. And I just did want to bring up athletic fields, not fees, but just making sure that, you know, there's such a big piece of our land and what children especially use and, you know, coming out of the pandemic, a place where kids can really come together and be on teams and work together. And so whatever investments we can be making and making them really usable as much as possible for children is a priority, especially in my house every day.
I think we voiced all of it beautifully. I continue to believe that, our educating our kids is the most important thing that we as a city government do. It is literally our future. It's a bedrock value of all of us here in Newton. We've taken huge steps forward on the athletic fields in the last 5 years, both how we manage them, how we fund them, how we maintain them. I know there are mixed feelings from in some members of the community, but replacing 3 synthetic turf fields, adding lights on, and adding a 4th synthetic turf field with lights are going to make a huge step forward. We're moving on to the grass fields right now. Grass fields at Albemarle, at Burra and Rath. And more to come in the years ahead. It's important to the kiddos, but I think that a lot of the adults should also thankfully play on those fields as well. And 6 pickleball courts in Albemarle, just as our first kind of universe of a whole group of them, and not near houses, so the noise issue is contained.
All set, Council Block.
My budget experience at the state level, and one of the tools that's pretty common in Massachusetts and other states, is as a part of the budget process, every department, in addition to asking for whatever new money they want, they have to identify 2% cuts as part of that. Just every year, that's what we do in case revenues fall short or trade-offs want to be made. There's some initiative that somebody very high up wants to fund badly, you find places to fund. Do you do anything?
I'll just start with Morgan and add on. So we look at every line item of every budget every single year. and say, first of all, do we need to continue doing this? Is there a more cost-effective way of doing it? Are there things that you would rather do with those funds rather than continuing that? So we don't do it that way. And by the way, I don't think the state
Yeah,
does that anymore. That was a practice that ended quite a while ago at the state level. But it's a clever management technique. But we do it very differently, line item by line item. And we are also always thinking about it's easier when there's new money, where do you want to put new money, but also are there any dollars that should be spent within the department? But I'll let Maureen add on.
Rather than looking at asking departments to cut or to at least give us a list for 1 or 2%, whatever it may be, I don't track the percentage increases at all. Which was difficult, for, in fact, former councilor Lappin, really struggled with me not even wanting to print the percentage increase by department. Councilor Mayor Fuller can certainly attest, when we talk about going line by line, there are no totals except at the bottom. So, which is why she knows we're 3,700 lines that are all competing for the same dollars. So you might be a department where we know we need to add things to your area this year. So we go line by line, to figure out if there are other places where we can slow down spending, not spend. We look at, should we be contracting something out? We look at, should we be taking contracts in and finding better and smarter ways to do things. So we are constantly, really, to the most minute detail, looking at every line item on my spreadsheets. Any line item that we're looking at, we actually have a great financial package nowadays. And so I can just click on that line and see every nickel that's been spent this year or any time in the last, I think it's 6 years now worth of data that I can look at every single vendor that has taken out of those accounts. So we don't even approach it as a department by department issue. We approach it as, this is the city, we know how much we have. We know what we really need to be done. We do it very collaboratively with all of our department heads. They're actually fabulous. They come in, they're so used to this now that they come in and tell us where we can lower money. We have a practice that if they don't spend their money near the end of the year, if it's important and we ought to bring it forward to the next year, we do. If it isn't, it drops to free cash because they know that in next year's budget, we're fully funding what they need. When we look at every position, we budget every position for the whole year. We don't look at, we either need a position or we don't need a position, in our opinion. And so we don't try to short money, if you will, by saying, well, we'll let you hire this person. Yes, we know someone left your department last week. We'll let you hire in October. We don't try to short where we're going to put health insurance costs. So when we have vacancies, I kind of have a plan that if we expect you to be single and under 30, we expect you to be under 30. We're budgeting for you to be single. We're budgeting for everybody who's 26 that we hire to be on their parents' insurance. So we don't assign health insurance to those vacancies. So when we're hiring firefighters, they're all going to be young kids, and most of them are probably kids. Young people. Way younger than my kids. But we look to that type of detail with every position. But we don't, and then we assume if you're 30 years or older, that we're putting you on a family plan.
Let me jump in. I think what I want you to understand is, so this is close to a $600 million operation. Most organizations like that are playing games, different departments are playing games with the CFO or the mayor to, we have a really great working collaborative relationships, department by department, with really experienced staff who are thinking this through with us and are really trying to deliver great programs and services to our residents in an efficient and effective way and not.
They can't really play games. As somebody who worked and managed state budgets for a long time, there was game playing a long time ago, that happened in the state, a lot of that came from it. But here in the city level, departments can't play, there's no game plan. Just, that's not who they are and who we are as a team, but also it's not physically possible for them to do that. So, because of the amount of information that Maureen has to analyze spending, and so there isn't a lot of games.
And if I could just add one more thing, just so that you all know where to control.
Yeah.
Let me just say one thing if I can, just. A year and a half ago, so for the first 12 or so years that I was here, I personally approved every single purchase record in this city that was for $1,000 or more, including the schools. Give it a concept of how many purchase requisitions we do, everything that was $1,000 or more, and I can't tell you how many things I turned back in my first 5 years, which is why people don't try to spend their money at the end of the year with a use it or lose it mentality. All of those things are gone out of all of our people, so.
Thanks for giving us that. No, I'm fine.
All right, so we're gonna be on council, basically Baker, Getz and Wright, and we have about 18 minutes left to go, so, Councilor Mickley,
Yeah,
you're on.
thank you very much. So my question is about resiliency. I feel like as a city, we're very focused on climate change and sustainability. And I'm wondering what more we can do to be focused on resiliency. You see more cities and states hiring for this position, having a chief resilience officer, someone that's focused on the realities of climate change, flooding, heat waves, power outages, and having someone that's really quite senior, looking at everything, being paranoid about the worst case scenarios being here, because they are here in many cases, especially on flooding. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on hiring for a chief resilience officer, having a part-time allocation to a chief resilience officer, or just bringing resiliency to a higher level of focus across all city elements.
Agree with part of that and disagree with part. Continuing to increase the focus on resiliency is really important. And I think we think of it differently than having a person who's trying to do it. Rather, we really believe in the team approach because resiliency involves so much of what we do here. It's our sustainability team, our environmental team, our public works team, our public buildings team. Yes, we're big, but we are small enough to actually be able to know each other and work closely with each other and together do this important work. It's also Parks and Rec, and I'm sure I'm getting other. So no, we cannot want to lodge that with a person over there who's trying to then work with all these other teams. I think we're much better off having sustained focus on resiliency and a collaborative team approach to it. Just my management preference for that. And I don't know, yeah, Jonathan's, knows a lot about this.
So, I'm not gonna say anything really negative toward any of these communities that do this, but there is a little bit of tokenism that goes with the creation of a position like that. It is far better, as the mayor explained, to have teams working together and focused on resiliency. So we have a sustainability team that's interdepartmental that meets every single week. I meet with them every 2 to 3 weeks just to ensure interdepartmental coordination, and when we need the mayor and Maureen's input on something, we get that. We have teams working on flooding, for example, between, I heard it last night, DPW, Parks and Rec, Conservation. We have people working on those things together as a team, and that's much better than having a person who's scrambling to try to figure out what to do on their own. So, sort of the way we look at it. It has to do with the size city and what kind of city we are and how we all work together.
Mr. Shannon?
All set?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Councilor Baker, you've been very patient virtually, all yours.
Let me see if I can do this. I'm in a car now, and so I'm a phantom counselor. But can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, colleagues, and thank you, Mayor Fuller and Mr. Yo and everybody involved. This is a comment to try and pick up on, I think, what Councilor Albright mentioned. I do support the support in the clerk's office, but also I've been on the city council, as you all know, a long time, and I can testify of personal experience that at least the men's bathrooms in that building have not changed in 40 years, probably 44. So if there's any way that exclusion override can pick up a few things of plumbing along the way, I think that would be a massive improvement.
The bathroom on the second floor it's being done this calendar
Yeah,
year.
it's also like,
Fabulous. I think that's a public interest matter, not just the city council matter. And then the other piece is that we approved in our committee the other night your recommendation for increasing some of the fees that are charged. And I mentioned it to the planning director. There are a few things where, at least for multiple repeat players in conservation or other commissions, sometimes there might be a valuable addition of a small fee just to try and help defray some of the costs that come in. It's not going to be much, but it might help manage the workflow a bit. So that is an important one. And then finally, when you're looking at enforcement, again, ISD, the dollars that, not the dollars, but the building permit fees and all the things that come in, I think it's very important that we have the resources there for the zoning and also the building codes to be enforced, especially if we're moving into new and important areas of electrification. So those are my 3 ideas.
Got it, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Councilor Janice.
Okay, this is my first budget and whoa.
Have fun.
Well, I came in here with a wish list, all right, and I was thinking, okay, well, we'll double this and, and then there's just no way. So this is a really intense wake up call, just in terms of the constraints and what we're working in. But if I were to advocate for anything, I would think that, IT and working with our newsletter in the clerk's office, just so that we are very conscious of being public facing and letting people appreciate and understand the work that we are doing and the hard decisions that we have to make. But I truly believe that the data needs to be accessible and it needs to be on the website so that then the crash data is listed. When we're talking about the SHI and the ability to Zap, to have a posting like they do in Brookline of where we are with our SHI. So that it becomes just even a web page that people can access and they can not even have to come to us, but necessarily we can direct them to an active page on the city website so that then they can, find the information that they're looking. And I think that's a validating kind of place to be, just in the sense that people are comforted that in fact, fully exposed, full transparency, and they can access the actual information. And then the other question that I had was more specific, because you had gotten into the conversation about where are we with our ability to bond? I mean, I was very, very disconcerting to say that the next one, the next school is at a status that we have to pass, another debt exclusion override. So we know we don't have the ability to bond anymore.
No, I think perhaps you misunderstood, I'm sure Maureen will follow up. We definitely have the capacity to bond, and we will bond probably annually. We're selling some, bond anticipation notes next week. And some bonds next week, and we'll do that next year and the year after. It's the, for major projects like a $60 or $70 million elementary school building, for example, anything significant like that. No, there won't be the debt capacity to pay for something like that, but I promise you, we will be. Sometimes we'll use free cash, but sometimes we'll bond for the next fire truck or things like that. So we will continue to bond.
Okay, because we
But
have
major projects, any major projects in the next decade will need debt exclusion overrides for.
So the police station in public facilities, we had a little sort of preview of what was going to be considered an addition and a separate new building. So I think that that's a priority, in terms of that.
Yeah, and we'll need the support of our taxpayers to move that.
That's it for me.
Yep.
Thank you. Most of my issues have been, or all my issues have been, addressed. Just wanna, reinforce about the code enforcer for ISD. I know in the past, we have offered them, additional person or maybe a half time, and they keep, refusing it, and I'm hoping this year will be better. Just today, we got, from another resident, it's very complaint driven, it would be nice if ISD was out there more. And it doesn't have to rely on residents to be policing what's happening in their neighborhoods.
Is there anyone else who has a question or a comment? Yes, Councilman Allen.
Since there's time, I'd just like to echo the comments about traffic calming. I think we ought to be doing more of what, I think it's Cambridge and Somerville have been doing more with speed tables. The types of issues that I find I get the most emails about are kind of these quality of life things where people feel that speeding is a problem, or city, as Council Wright said, city ordinances not being enforced well enough, or being complaint driven, or people make their complaints and feel that problem still goes on. And this came up at the discussion in public facilities last night about stormwater. And, why is everyone pumping water out into the sewer from their basement sump pumps if it's not supposed to be legal? So, on the road issue, everyone would like more police enforcement, but it's not really practical because we don't have, it'd be very expensive to have enough police to do the enforcement everywhere people would want it. And as soon as you take it away, speeding is in. So if we could do more with, one-time spending on strategically located speed tables, there we have more of a self-enforcing type mechanism. And I agree on the issue of code enforcement. I get the sense, and I'd love it if we could get some information during the budget process on what are we collecting in fines versus what could we be collecting in fines? Because it just seems like, I know like Mark Welch and Far Street, they'll give people a warning, or, people will get warnings. And I think we're maybe being overly lenient on the warnings. I think we really want to satisfy the public that our codes are being enforced. So it can help with revenue and help with customer satisfaction. And I also think we ought to be moving pretty aggressively on the, trash and recycling, making it more, what we word, but sustainable. People just buy so much stuff, there's so much packaging, and it just goes out the door one way or another, and, I got ridiculed, I was like 6 years or 8 years ago now, when I first ran, suggesting that maybe we ought to be doing every other week trash collection coupled with organics, so that your every second week trash wouldn't get smelly if you were in a secure container. And I think that hopefully that seems to be like the economically beneficial solution. And
Just in time.
I didn't know if it was in California or where it's so I think the faster we can get, people to sort of accept the idea that the way we produce trash, we can't keep doing that. And, I'm on board with kind of trying to get that changed sooner rather than later. I think along with the Sustainable Materials Management Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
All right, it's, about 4 minutes of time. Anyone else have any questions or comments for the evening? If not, thank you, colleagues, and thank you to Mayor Fuller and the team for coming here. Really a great presentation, and I think very thoughtful discussion. And I look forward to doing this work again. And we have a lot of work ahead of us in the spring, and it comes to all of you to adjourn. We're adjourned.
We need this formal folder.
All in favor, say aye.
Bye.
Good.
You all.